let's jump into our next speaker. I'm so excited. Born Tibetan refugee in India and raised in Canada, we have Dr. Losang Rabgey joining us. She is the first Tibetan to hold a PhD in Feminist Anthropology. She's also the first Tibetan Commonwealth scholar and National Geographic explorer. In 1998, she and her sister co-founded Machik with their parents as a nonprofit whose mission is to grow a global community committed to a stronger future for Tibet. In 20 plus years, she has helped mentor and support education for thousands of people. So I'm going to bring her in live with us right now. I'm so excited. Losang, how are we doing today?
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
All right. Well, it's so great to see you. It's been a minute since we've connected. I'm sure that you've been very, very, very busy, up to all sorts of amazing things in the education space. But yeah, what I'd like to do, if you're up for it, is let you take over for a bit. Let us get to know you a little bit better. And then I bet we'll have a few questions.
Wonderful, Joe. Thank you and your team for the wonderful work you do ongoing. It's an honor to be here and among all these other speakers as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I hope this is going to connect.
Yeah, we'll give the screen share a go, and I have your presentation as a backup. So if we can't get it going, I'll pop it up. Either way, we're gonna check it out. As you're sharing, that first option for entire screen tends to be the best option for going full screen.
Right. I think I'll ask you to share the screen, Joe. Yeah. It's not coming up on my end. I apologize.
No worries at all.
Okay.
Technology, right? Sometimes it goes nice and smoothly, or other times you have to kind of finesse it a little bit, but that's why we have these backups. So just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to share my entire screen. I'll bring the presentation up. You tell me if it looks okay once I go full screen.
That's great.
And then if you just hit next slide, tell me next slide, I will transition us.
Okay, wonderful. That looks great. Wonderful. So thank you everyone for joining today. It's Sunday 10 a.m. here, and I'm on in the city of Kawartha Lakes in Canada. It's about minus 25 degrees Celsius. I think that's a minus 11 Fahrenheit here. So I hope you're all warm and safe. So as Joe mentioned, my heritage, my background is Tibetan as well as Canadian. I live in the US usually, and we have had the tremendous privilege, life-changing privilege of the opportunity to explore how to build empathy in a very uncertain context and place in the world, which is Tibet, through the powerful avenue of education. This is why I so admire what Joe and his team are doing, what Wesley does, etc. is their commitment, lifelong commitment to education, and we share that passion. So the story of Machik's work is very interesting, I think, because we had no training or preparation to do this kind of exploration. Truly by the seat of our pants. I completely concur with that observation and experience shared by so many other explorers. It was really a labor of love. It was a leap of love, not just a leap of faith. In 1987, our parents took us to Tibet for the first time. I was a teenager, so that dates my age. But by 1998, we decided, there is now a small window of opportunity to go inside Tibet, not just in diaspora, but actually inside Tibet, which is now under the PRC, to actually deliver Tibetan language, mother tongue-based bilingual education to rural Tibetans. So many people, so many told us this was not possible. But as I said, as a leap of love, leap of faith, we began the first step without any sort of guarantee of success, without formal training, because what we've done in the last 4 years exactly has not been done before. So Other people to whom I look up to have done wonderful work of education inside Tibet that we so admire, but very few diaspora Tibetans go back. And our project is unique in that, next slide. We have truly tried to think long-term at every stage, not just in terms of 1 year, 2 year, 5, even 10-year project, but to think, okay, in 50, 60, 70 years, what are the impacts that we truly hope to have? And in one particular village, happens to be my father's village. Next slide. And it is on the very, very far eastern edge of the Tibetan Plateau. And I like to think of the region in geological terms, because when you look at the map as the plateau, you realize Tibet is defined by this incredible 14,000 foot elevation. And indeed, our school is at the bottom of a valley, which is about 13,000 feet. So for us, that's the lowland. Next slide. And these are the people who originally inspired me and continue to inspire me. My sister, in the middle of all those young girls that she was mentoring in Tibet, Dr. Tashi Rabgey, and then my parents, the couple on your left. My father and mother, Pencho and Tsering, they were the ones who decided in 1998 to invest all of my father's retirement savings that he had saved up until then into building the first Chumba primary school. Next slide. And we understood that there was a problem, a tremendous challenge to meet. In 1987, when we first re-engaged with our community there. This was the school that the local authorities, the local education authorities, had built for a community of 5,000 people. Can you imagine? There were maybe 20, 25 students learning here, basically relearning the same things every day. This is not, I think, by any standard, what parents would get excited about for education for their children. But this is what existed. And so over many years and many long conversations and a complex set of conditions, which I can explain to anyone who would like to hear more about it outside of the conference, we were able to get permission. This was a lot of hard work, a lot of persistence, and some luck, a lot of community support went into making this possible in a very uncertain region of the world. And next slide. And with all that support from, inside Tibet, from just so many places outside Tibet, this is the school that we were able to produce. So on your left is the primary school, on the right is the middle school. We now have about 850 students boarding full time. And as I mentioned, the medium of instruction is Tibetan language. I cannot emphasize how important this is for our future, for our 50, 60, 70-year timeline. We need young Tibetans learning their own language, not as a second language, but as the medium of instruction. They are also, from day one, also learning Mandarin, and we are trying very hard to introduce them to some English as much as we can, to a third language. I believe children all over the world are capable of learning multiple languages at the same time. Some of the languages may take a few years to master, but eventually they get there. And indeed, these children of farmers and pastoralists, none of the parents had even a grade 6 education. These children in the first year became first in the countywide testing, standardized testing, that's what they do over there, in Tibetan language. By the time they graduated grade 6, they were top in both Tibetan and Chinese. Very unusual for rural students to achieve this. And the only reason this happened is not because our students are any brighter than any other kids anywhere in the world. It's because it was a collective, multi-stakeholder approach. And this is what we learned. It wasn't enough just to care about these kids. They happened to be from my father's village, the only place we get permission to work. But it wasn't enough just to care about them or their parents. We had to really think about the context that they're in and to think deeply about all the stakeholders involved and how each of them sees the situation, how each of them operates, and how the consequences of any action for each of these multiple stakeholders. So it really was a profound eye-opener. I did my PhD. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I did it in London, England, and University of London. I learned so much, but this was 10 times harder. This was real life with real people and real consequences. And we were truly exploring, not just in terms of how do I do a good program and produce results, but in each of us on the team, there's so many of us working together at Machik. Each of us, we had to dig inside ourselves and figure out, how do I have empathy, not just for the students? That's easy. It's easy to care about kids. It's easy to care about their academic achievement. How do we care about everybody involved? That was much harder. That was much more difficult, even before getting to the caring, just to see everyone's different contexts. And I really was encouraged and guided to do this by my parents, my sister, other people who advised us along the process, and just through sheer exposure, really seeing how local teachers, the parents, the people already trying to provide education, what were their limitations, constraints, what was working, what was not working. So all of this was sort of the baseline, but on top of that, we tried our best to travel and to live and to speak as locals do, and to speak the local, of course, Tibetan language, but even the local dialects. We had to learn a new dialect. And thank goodness for my father's capacity. He already knew the local dialect, but my sister and I had to learn it. My mother's sister and I had to learn it. Others had to do the same. But I think above all, the process of building that local empathy with the local, not just the kids and their parents, but the whole education context was long-term commitment. It is so often the case with the Sustainable Development Goals. The goals sound awesome. They look great on paper. It is 10 times harder to actually put them into real life, and to see a project through over 25 years instead of just 5 years. And so where we started with students in kindergarten, we made a promise to the parents many, many years ago to deliver not just a kindergarten education or even grade 6. The parents, they themselves didn't go to school, but they could tell that wasn't enough. That wasn't going to fundamentally change their future of their communities. So we made that promise, and it was scary. It was scary to make a promise on delivering something not for 1 or 2 of my own kids, but for hundreds of children of other people. It was a very eye-opening process, and took many people inside Tibet, outside Tibet, to make that all possible. But through time, we were able to see it through. And by 2018, the first cohort of Chungpa students, the one who had done so well in their testing, they actually graduated college. And about 35 of them are now teachers in the county where we built the school. So, and we love teachers. We love teachers. So, and they're so proud. Their parents are so proud. And they're seeing their young people, proud of their farming and pastoral roots, but also very high capacity in being able to pass on the language. And through that, there's a much higher potential to continue the culture. We know this from examples all around the world. So on that level, what we're doing is nothing new. I think what we're doing that's different is we're working in such an area of uncertainty, of great challenge. And my takeaway today is the importance of really searching inside ourselves to figure out, how do we listen to people across a great cavernous gap? How do we build the internal strength and desire to sit and listen deeply long enough to someone to understand what their their challenges are, and what the possible, the Venn diagram overlap. How do we possibly find those spots, even if they're very small in the beginning, and grow those over time? So we are grateful to everybody, and there's just so many names of real people who have who've taken a risk, who've put in extra time, donors included, but so many just people who have shared their knowledge and their networks of people to make education possible. And it is not just about one village. The school has now become a center point in a ripple effect, improving and influencing principals, teachers, students, education administrators, far beyond this one little village high up in the mountains in the local area. So many challenges currently, many challenges will come. And what we know from our little bit of experience is that all of this is only going to change when we truly do the thing that's harder sometimes, to not just have a sort of game plan for a program. Of course you do that, but to really select challenges sometimes that seem impossible. We will need to work with a team that also shares that passion and really challenge ourselves internally as well. So I hope that makes some impact on trying to understand a different kind of exploration. When people find out that we work in Tibet, they're often assumed that we're climbers or exploring something in that way. But we are really about trying to figure out how to build a stronger future for Tibet, how to be a little bit of make a small contribution to that process, and how to grow a global community that cares about, continues to care about Tibet into the future. Along the way, I'll end on another positive note. Along the way of doing this education, we have had the great privilege and honor of working with incredible change makers inside Tibet. This was truly, when I think back to the beginning of the work, an unexpected joy, an unexpected privilege. Because we were doing work in a way that was not just on a 2 to 5 year time plan, we were slowly able to meet some of the most inspiring human beings I've met anywhere. These are Tibetans inside Tibet who are making changes in HIV/AIDS education, in women's empowerment, and especially many in conservation. And one I will mention is Bazang, Kunchok Bazang. He is a pastoralist, born and bred. His entire family lineage are pastoralists in Tibet, primarily yak herding. And he was the first in his village to ever get a college education. And while he could have had a very comfortable life in an urban setting, he chose instead to go back to Tibet. Back to his village, to his pastoral area, and began working very closely, again, in a multi-stakeholder approach with his community to come up with a plan to counter desertification. There was a huge problem in his area of grassland becoming deserts. And so over time, with the local people's own strategic plan, their own ideas, thank you, Joe. They were able to take what you see as a small example of their larger project. April 2012 is an image of Bazan and his pastoral community members planting grass in a very particular way, in a very particular, with a particular strategy in April of 2012. And by August, on sandy soil, they were able to produce this kind of result. I had to see this for myself, and I went all the way. It's quite far from the village, but I traveled the 2 days it took to get to his area, and I never thought that seeing grass would make me cry. But what they've done is not just the end result. It is the entire process through which they got to the end result, with the community leading. And it was his initial challenge to himself to build that empathy to be able to take a multi-stakeholder approach in an uncertain context. So there are so many examples of people like Bazin who inspire us every day, and they are all over the world. I hope that you will be able to take heart from this and understand that there are, when we all face so many very collective global challenges, it takes everyone looking around at what they can do with their own lives, with what we have, with the communities and resources and knowledge that we have to make a difference. Thank you.
All right, let me just come back from my screen share here. There we go. Perfect. Wow. Thank you so much. What an amazing project. What a difference it's made. And you know, from that first school to what's been built is just absolutely incredible. So, you know, a huge kudos to you, your sister, your family, and that vision, right? Of your parents to kind of take those retirement savings and believe in something so strongly, to take that giant leap. And I think that's been a theme we've seen all weekend is taking risks, following your passions, not listening to people saying why, like Sylvia Earle said on Friday night. Why not? That's the question you should ask, is why not?
Right. Absolutely, Joe. I mean, kudos to Sylvia. My goodness, massive appreciation there. I feel extremely lucky because our parents took my sister and I to Tibet in 1987, as I mentioned, and I met my cousins. You know, in our culture, your cousin is like your sibling. We're very close, closely linked. And none of my cousins, all of them, had even a fourth grade education. And so it was profoundly eye-opening, because my sister and I were dead set on college education. My parents made sure of that. Even though, you know, we come from a working class background, it was expected of us by our parents. And there was no opportunity from people like my cousins. And we realized, my God, I am no smarter. I am no more deserving. There's nothing that makes me different from them. And they are now still full-time farming, most of them full, and some of them part-time pastoral as well. And so they all missed the opportunity for an education. Many of their children have gone to the Chungpa school, in fact, along with hundreds of other people's children. But that made me and my sister and I realize how important it is to empathize, not just with our own family, but to extrapolate to rural Tibet, rural anywhere, to underprivileged anywhere. And that has that was the first lesson in the empathy, is to realize the sameness of us all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, you know, as you were telling some of those stories, how students have now themselves gone on to become educators. And I think that is so exciting, because now they're taking that knowledge and they're passing it on to the next generation, and they're doing it locally and right in the communities. That's so exciting.
Absolutely, doing it in their mother tongue and bilingually, which is also important. And we know they will face challenges. We're not pretending at all that it's going to fix everything, but it's absolutely going to put them in a better position to make better decisions for their communities. Yeah,
no question. So, I mean, my big question now is what are you working on now? What's next? I'm sure there's always ideas, right? I think that's what kind of happens, is things start and you never stop kind of thinking of ideas. You never stop asking why not, or what's next.
Right. Well, thank you, Joe. We've been blessed with great team members over the years, staff who've worked with us and gone on to do other things, and the new staff, so many wonderful volunteers. And we've all continued to take that same initial sort of energy and point of empathy, and the work has, I guess, transmogrified as the changing conditions have led us to pivot inside Tibet. Many challenges, not the pandemic was kind of another digital challenge, but we're sort of used to having to pivot all the time.
Right.
But we have grown our global work quite a bit in the last few years, doing programs such as the Machik Gender Summit, the KAPDA program, which is an educational program to learn about cultural change makers inside Tibet. We have an annual event called Machik Fest, to which you and everyone on your team and listeners are welcome to. It's a global, very affordable week-long festival to understand better how we all can learn more about Tibet, connect to the change makers inside, to stay connected, and to care about beyond sort of our own local areas, wherever that may be. How do you do that from year to year to year, despite all the challenges? So Machik Fest to me is like a big old family reunion. We celebrate the arts, science so much. Education, of course, is a centerpiece. But so we put all those kind of events together as well.
All right, so I popped the link to the website up on the screen because I think that's probably the best place to go to learn more about the programs. I'm sure the festival will be advertised there as well. We'll share your handles as well on social media shortly because I think that's obviously another great spot to connect with you and learn more about upcoming projects. So we have a question here coming in. I'm going to squeeze in from YouTube.
Sure.
From our audience. And so they're wondering about training that teachers might get. Is there further training for teachers, for educators? They're just hoping you can expand on that a little bit.
Good question. So Tibet is physically huge, and it's the size of Western Europe. So there's different things going on in different parts of Tibet. That's the easiest short answer. And in some areas, there needs to be a lot more done. And in other areas, there's quite a bit being done, which is kind of not dissimilar to many other places in the world, including where I am. There's always inequities in education, but the bigger challenge that Tibetan teachers face, if that's the question at hand, is access to teaching through our mother tongue. And I do believe most teachers would like that capacity, and initially even becoming a bilingual teacher itself in most cultures is not easy. In Tibet, it's certainly not easy. And yet some people have managed to create that pathway for hundreds of teachers. And it's precious. It's something that we need to ensure continues on into Tibet's future.
All right. Well, I must say it's always great to connect with a fellow Canadian. I know all about the weather right now. We got about, I would say, a spread out 15 to 20 centimeters. I found myself doing the driveway 4 times
yes,
day, which was delightful. But I guess it just comes with living somewhere in the great north.
Oh, great to be here. Thank you, Joe.
Of course. I'm going to share those social handles there. You're doing incredible work. It's so inspiring. The story is inspiring. And what I love the most is it's not even slowing down. It's just building momentum. It's growing. And that's probably most exciting of all.
Well, thank you so much. And best of luck with everything you're doing. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Losang. Have a great rest of the weekend. And I hope it's not too long before we connect again.
Yep. Stay engaged.